Welcome everyone to the program on the art and practice of nature-spirit communication. As is noted, this was sponsored by the Infinity Foundation in Highland Park and by my website, atalatoy.com. So this is going to be a four-part workshop. And the first part is going to be on nature spirit situations you may encounter. Second part is going to be on principles of interspecies communication. Third part is going to be a virtual visit with a nature spirit and meditation. And the fourth is sources of information about nature spirits. And there's going to be a Q&A at the end of each part. But if there's something that you really have to know in between, you can ask in the chat and Laura will let me know. And we will go off the mute for the Q&A part of it. All right, the workshop is going to take approximately an hour and a half or so. Okay. And this picture right here I took in Bryce Canyon. And it was at sunset. And I love this. This is a sun flare here. But it looks like a nice pink ball of love that this huge, might be 60 feet tall puppy and this nature spirit over here are playing with. So this is the first section, nature spirit situations you may encounter. I wanted to review first how the nature spirit realms are organized. They're hierarchical in form in that they're different levels or kingdoms that go down. And the highest level are the devas. And they're the beings who are in charge of the organizational structure of large areas down to small areas. And even if you're out on a walk in the woods, as those of you know who've been with me, I like to show you how you can feel when you go from one nature spirit or deva's domain to another. There's a marked difference in energy. Some of the devas are very fancy and some are very simple. And you see that in the type of vegetation that grows in the same little microclimate. So on the left here, what you see is a lady of the forest. And if you, the ladies of the forest are the devas who are in charge of the comings and goings of all the beings in their realm, and the birthings and the deaths. And here she is with a heart face. She has one eye that you can see, the other eye is empty. That indicates that she works between worlds, and part of her sees into our world and the other part transmits into the spirit world. And this is a common symbolism that's seen in messenger trees, and that was well known by Native Americans. They recognize this part of their culture. This lovely lady of the forest has a wonderful head, and she has a veil coming down around her. And down here, she's birthing a baby bird, and the eye is there, and it's coming out from inside her and just chirping and through its mouth. This lady's located at the Morton Arboretum in Lisle, and Morton is a place that absolutely loves trees. I love Morton Arboretum. It's a wonderful place to go. Over here on the right is a lady of the lake, and you can see her visage here, her head, her eye, nose, and mouth. And here's this V, the reversed V of the female energies. You know, if you have the star tetrahedron, this is the female side. And she is responsible for all of the life forms at Bear Lake, which is up in the Rocky Mountain National Forest in Estes Park. Now, when you're out looking at the beings that you encounter in nature, there's a lot. It's not just one scenario. There are a lot of different scenarios, and I highly recommend you're going out and taking photos wherever you are when you see them. And then over time, you get a collection that you can start looking at and seeing how different kinds of beings fit into different categories. And I've been doing the photography about 12 years now and have a nice collection of different groups. It's very helpful when you're discerning the different nature types. So the beings may be the manifestation of the life force energy of the object. They may use the object as their home base, or they may use their object as their canvas, sorry. And the object can also be a gateway or a portal or a nodal point on an energy grid. I'm going to show you some of these. So right here, this is the spirit of the rock itself. And this is Grandfather Rock. He's up in Estes Park. A favorite of mine. I usually, when I'm up there, I sit here. And first time I sat with him, I was having personal issues, and he was so kind. He took me into his inner world and put me in among all of his rock family, brought me in as a member of the family, and just made me feel an enormous sense of protection. So he's a very protective form. He also has a bird-like visage here. And it's interesting that rocks will sometimes do that. They will manifest something they like. I imagine he was very fond of birds who can come and go. Well, he's been the same place for ages. I love his eye here. Over here, these are the nature of the tree itself. This tree used to be at Mays Lake Preserve in Illinois, and it has seen its better days. And you can see the little spirit here is a little sad. It was taken down soon after because it was just dying, but a sweet little being, and then other beings in the tree here. Now, Earth looks solid, but it is really looks solid because energetically it's a sequence, a piling up of grids, all kinds of energy grids of all kinds. You have the Christ grid, you have the Buddha grid, you have the Mayan grid, which is an intergalactic culture. And these grids, where they cross, it's called a nodal point. And some of them are very powerful. They go through their key structures that hold the grid in place. And very often in those places, nature will use a tree or a rock to anchor it in place, and will very often manifest the image. So here, this is in Central Park, and this is an ape grid that holds the human template for evolution from the ape. And you can see it here. Now, this tree is a tree of the intelligence holding an energetic story in place created by the higher beings of light. So here you have the ape and you have the dumb human. Sometimes I call this planet of the apes. And he's above the dumb human. Here's a nature spirit. And here's like a Greek soldier. And up here in the mind of the ape, you see another more intelligent humanoid being, so showing the evolution of this. Now, this tree stands in Central Park. Central Park has a lot of very, very powerful nature spirits at play and work because so many people come through it all the time. It's a good opportunity to work with humans. And this is on a path. Now over on the right, there are, as I said, there's a Christ grid, a Buddha grid. There's also a Mayan grid. The Mayans are an intergalactic culture. And they have had a very important place in the development of Earth, if you're into intergalactic things. And very often I have a connection with the Mayan energy. So very often when I'm out photographing, I will come across a Mayan-oriented image. So here on the beach up in Acadia in Maine, it's called, I think, sculpture rock, something to do with the rock. You see this one very, very tall, maybe 40 feet tall image. And for some reason, I'm not sure why, a lot of the Mayan features have this kind of a hat where it's straight across and it goes up. You can see his face here coming down. And here is the sacrificial figure on the temple altar. That is a part of the Mayan grid, is that sacrifice. So a sacrifice of the human for the culture. Another use, something that you'll see when you go out and you photograph, are when trees are address markers for a nature spirit's home. So this is not the energy of the tree itself. The tree is being used as a kind of a nodal marker on a smaller level. It's being used by a nature spirit as a place where they've anchored their energy. And then they operate over a slightly larger territory. But that anchor there means that any place in their territory that is being affected in an area that they have responsibility for, they will immediately know it from this grid that goes out, and they can be there at the same time that their energy is being held in place in the marker tree. So here, as one of the ladies who loves elves, I love the wood elves. They're just wonderful people. And this is one of the large wood elves. Here is his headdress and his feathered cloak. And he can be seen two ways. He can be seen either here as a young warrior, or if you look at a larger way, he can be seen here as an older warrior. So this is a way that these beings show over time, what's happening to them over time. On the right is a Greenman, and the Greenmen are special friends of mine. I've worked with for many incarnations. They are the philosophers, the warriors, the peacekeepers, the communicators in the nature spirit world. And we will discuss the Greenmen in depth later on in the third part when we do a meditation. We'll be working with the Greenmen there. But here you can see, this is in Wheeler Park in Geneva. You can see his eye, his nose, his mouth, and his signal mark of the leaves that go back from his face and that come forward if he's in battle or if he's showing off for the ladies. Another kind of a being you're going to find in nature are portal guardians. And there are many, many portals, all of these grids that are around the earth. Wherever a number of grids cross, these are like wormholes or portals that you can surf through them to get from one place to another. There are also entry points where you can go into that particular nature spirit's world. And so these are powerful entry points, and they have a guardian. If you kind of think, if you've seen Thor Ragnarok, where they have the guardian for the portal going into Asgard, it's that kind of a thing. It's recognized throughout with the Druids and the different cultures that these portals exist, and they have guards. This image here is from Longwood Garden, and it's one of the last remaining American elm trees. And they are going to great lengths to protect it and to propagate it. All the others in the long line of elms died from the Dutch elm disease. So this has an unusual number of guardians who are seeking to maintain the strength of this grand dame tree. And you'll see here, here's one large figure with the eye and the nose, and then a secondary figure in the cloak right here. Then you see another figure here with the mouth and the beard going down. In here, you can see there's a figure with the eye and the nose. And then if you look at this, the figure itself in the large, it looks almost like a Native American Indian with a feather coming down. So this is one of the things that trees and rocks do. It always reminds me of Picasso, in that you can see these images are often, you can see them front and side in the same canvas. The trees and rocks have a very, very limited canvas, and they can only express themselves within that canvas, so they morph as they get more sophisticated over their artistic evolution. They'll morph one figure into another and overlay them. So if you're dealing with a well-evolved tree or rock, it's an enormous amount of sophistication you're going to find in these images. When you go out and you take photographs and you come across any place that has an image, what you need to do is pause, look at it, and then start walking around the tree. You look up and down and on all the sides, because once a tree learns how to craft these images, they don't stop. And they do others around, and there's ways that they express their own personality, or they express what's going on in their community. Now, there's another tree that's called a council tree. And these are the courthouses for the nature realms. The judges come from various of the nature realms, and the nature beings can bring complaints to the court, which issues a binding decision that's valid in all the nature realms. So this is a council tree up in North Conway, New Hampshire, that resides in the lawn of one of the founders of Conway, New Hampshire. And it is been my favorite since I've been a child. And I love to go visit this. And here you see an elf prince, has the long nose, the eye, the cheek, and the mouth. You see over here, there's a green man, a warrior green man here. You see here a Native American look. You see a bird. You see here a merchant elf. This is a merchant elf. And you see here an ape, monkey figure. So this indicates, and if you walked around the tree, you'd see, look up and down, you'd see other images. This indicates that, excuse me, let me just see if there's, okay. This indicates how many different kinds of beings are in this council, and that it goes across all the different nature species, and it's a high court where all the species can come and adjudicate their issues. Now there's another kind of a monument, it's a commemorative monuments. And these are ones that are operated and created either by the Devas or by ETs or by some life form that we're not familiar with yet. But they are using these canvases of nature much as we would with paint. And if you look closely at any of the images that are commemorative, it's like somebody took a finger through, or a palette knife through butter, and just sculpted it out of this rock or tree bark into a specific image with a specific purpose. This image here is from Garden of the Gods in Colorado. And it's in the Grand Plaza. And here is a very large mural of whitish rock in a red rock. And it commemorates the saving of humans and animals by the ant people during the Ice Age. And so here is the ant with the long ant nose and the eye and the mouth. Over here is an Indian head with the eye, and that eye drips a tear when it rains. There's a teardrop that comes down here. And here is a cougar face, a mountain lion, representing the animals that were saved by the ant people. And the cougars are also seen to be an emblem for Garden of the Gods. I've found their images everywhere. In fact, if you go into my blog today, I featured some cougar images. And so this is the Utes when they come here for summer celebrations. I understand they come and they will actually do ceremony here, recognizing this image. Now, we are so cavalier about how we treat trees and rocks, and seem to feel that they're lifeless, you know, they're just beings, things that we can cut down and use. But they actually have a wide range of emotions, and they are very sensitive and very intelligent. So there are many stories of love between beings in the nature realms. And here's a visual story of a balsam and a birch who loved each other. And this is from up in the National Forest up in North Conway, where my family has a summer home. And I have, when I go up and visit them, I usually take a walk out in the woods and check in on this couple and see what's happening. Now, I came upon them back about, 10, 15 years ago when I was walking through the woods, and I heard two voices, a male and a female, saying, "I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you," calling back and forth to each other, just constantly. And I was looking around, I couldn't find where the heck this was coming from. And I finally tracked it down to these two trees. And it's a balsam and a birch. And they were deeply in love, had been for obviously many, many years, in a permanent kiss, and telling each other that they loved each other. But the birch had very few leaves. It was at the end of its lifespan. It has a shorter lifespan than a balsam. So while I was observing this, the Deva of the area came and spoke with me. And she was very proud of her work. And actually, this is a story I tell you in my Nature Spirits, Spirit Guides and Ghost book for those of you who've read that, you'll remember the story I talk about. And in this case, she was combining in her territory balsams and birches because she said the balsams were strong to hold up to the winter winds and energy, but they were very stern. And the birches were very soft, needed protection, and they were very gentle. And she felt that this was a good combination, this male-female, balsam and birch, loving each other. So over the course of that summer, I would go back and visit, and David took me through the woods to find others of her combinations that she had made of birches and balsams, and each had a different and unique story. So sometime I might share those photos with you and the different stories that I came up with. But in this case, we're talking about the love between a birch and a balsam. Now, when I came back a couple of years later, the birch had died and was beginning to pull away. And here you can see the face of the balsam is right here. And he's reaching out towards her, not wanting to let her go. The love that he feels is so strong for her. And then I came back a couple years after that, and the balsam now was slipping down the cliff that they lived on, and the birch was. The balsam had his arms extended, trying to hold her back, his branches. But already up in here, some of the branches were breaking. So it was the loss of his love that he could no longer hold on. And in later years, I have photos of her having fallen. But this is an intense, devoted love that's so clear to so many people, and it indicates just how intense trees can feel. Now, this is another story I've written about in Nature Spirits book, and that I've expanded on. Some of these sites that are really major, when you start doing this kind of photography, you want to keep going back and exploring them, learning more. What happens is that the nature spirits, their communication is like a Merkaba of energy. It's like a round ball of energy. And inside that Merkaba is everything about the story. And they transmit it to you. And then depending upon your ability to unravel this Merkaba into the linear way that we humans think, it depends upon how much you understand of the story. But this Merkaba has been transported into your spirit. So if you're looking at this photo, you can go back year after year as you grow in your own work, and you can understand more about the story than you had before. And you also can, if you go back to the site, if it's somewhere that you have access to, you can sit and commune with the nature spirits and learn more. They'll tell you more. This place is in Garden of the Gods in southern Illinois. And I go back there often over the years. This is the guardian of place here when he was young. And he is the guardian for the whole area. And he and I have conversations, and he tells me more about himself and the complexities of his area. It's a very complex area. So you've been looking at this. Here's the guardian of place as a young man. Here is that kind of a Vishnu cobra goal of this little line balloon where he's dreaming of going into the spiritual life. Here is his love, who can be seen Picasso-like as a young girl right here. And then as over the years, as she became an old crone and with her toothless grin, And she never lost her love for him. And you can see this hand down here reaching into her dream of when they were lovers and when he was young. And you can see his legs, his buttock, and his broad shoulders. And now right in here, you can see the cat that is her companion now. So this is a story that the guardian was honoring his love, who he really always loved, but he sacrificed that love to gain the spiritual power that enabled him to become guardian of place. But he is honoring her. And here you can see, I graphed this out for you. There's the cobra cloud. His face is a boy. The maiden's face side here. The crone's face, side view. The cat face, the hand, back of the legs, the buttocks, and the shoulders. So I'll just go back and let you look at that for a minute. And there. And this is about maybe, 50 feet tall, and it's of lysing bands. That it's a form of sandstone laced with iron from the water, and it creates bands. But this has been manipulated by the guardian of place to create this scene. So it's a case where in other realms, physical matter is not as solid as we conceive of it here in the physical plane. And he just turned the solid rock into this beautiful mural. And lastly, concluding this area, yes, is the love of the nature realms for us. And very often people love collecting scenes of hearts, and nature leaves us lots of hearts that are symbols of their love for us. So here on the right is a little lichen covered rock that the nature spirits left at my feet up in Estes Park when I was saying goodbye to my rock family up there, and that I wouldn't see them for a few years. And when I looked down, I found they had left me a heart. Over here is a tree heart in Fabian Estate out in Geneva, and that's an area that loves trees and loves frequency, so I left it here. And here, this is Garden of the Gods, right next to a Vision Quest site, and this is a heart, and inside it is a kind of a cute little cougar inside the heart. So it's the stones protecting the cougar energy. And this is a place that kids love to play at. So that is the end of the first section. And now I am going to see if we have any questions from anybody.
We have some questions in the chat.
Okay.
Bridget wants to know if dead trees have nature spirits living in them also.
Oh, definitely, definitely. A tree, many people note that a tree in all of its phases is very useful in the nature world. When trees are dead, lots of times they'll be used to sculpt images. They'll be used as a holding device. There are many uses of dead trees, definitely. If you see a dead tree, you have to honor it. There are many spirits that work there.
Denise wants to know how you can tell it's a council tree.
They tell me. When I'm out, when I go out for a walk, the first thing I always do when I get someplace is I greet the deva. And those of you who've taken walks with me know that we do that. And as soon as you greet the deva and she comes in and is going to assist you, everything changes. Your view, the energy, it all changes. and you enter into this in-between world. I have a contract to photograph nature spirits and share with people. So I let spirit know that, and then whatever wants to be shown, I'm led there. Either a voice or an energy will lead me there. And once you get to a council tree, very often it has a clear space in front of it, around it, where the nature spirits gather to listen. And just if you know nature spirit, you know right away, and then you ask them and they'll tell you.
So it just takes practice. You have to ask the deva and listen.
Thank you, Laura. That's correct.
Okay. And Karen just says she has a photo that looks like that from the Garden of Gods. Where is that down there, if you can tell?
Sure. Well, if you look at the Grand Plaza, which is that large grass area, and you look off to the right, there is a path that goes around, and then you come to an area with a lot of tall cliffs that's on the left, and kids love it there, and people like to rappel, and that's about a 10-foot tall rock formation in
Okay.
the enclave.
Cool. Okay, I think that's it.
Okay, all right, okay, everybody have their questions answered? Then we're going to go into the second part. All right. Now, the second part are principles of interspecies communication. So this is where I'm going to go through the principles of how to connect with these spirits. And then in the third section, we're going to take you through an exercise where you're going to practice connecting to spirit using a Greenman image. So in interspecies communication, there are two sides to the process. There's nature reaching out to us and us reaching out to nature. And both sides need to be agreeable for successful communication. Both sides need to have sufficiently refined consciousness so that the frequency differences between the two realms can be bridged. Each side has an affinity for a specific band of consciousness. Thus, when starting out, humans will connect with specific types of nature spirits and gradually broaden their communication abilities. So if you have an affinity, for wolf, if that's your totem animal, or bear, when you go out, you're going to tend to see images of wolf. Very often when I go out for a walk, I have an affinity for bear. And I might call the group's attention to a tree with a wonderful bear image, and somebody else in the group might say, oh, look at that wonderful wolf image. That'll be, right next to it. So wherever your natural affinity is, you start there. And then as you get used to the nature spirit frequencies, you can broaden your spectrum of consciousness so that you see other images. So when I first started, I didn't see anything. A gnome showed me my first image. But now I can go out and I have a basis and a communication ability now so that I can see many more things than I used to be able. But it's very important that when you go out, you have to connect to the nature. You can't just go out and say, okay, I'm going to go out and see some pictures. That's not how it works. Now, when two or more people go out together, they may see different images, even in the same tree. That is because they resonate with different bands of consciousness due to their different genetic and incarnational histories. Going out in a group when all are focused on the same objective, connecting with nature spirits for us, brings very good success. The group consciousness connects and fills in gaps and brings the nature spirits deeper into our bands of human frequency. When you start out, the dawn and twilight hours are very good to work in. These are times when the energies are fluidly changing, and so the barriers between the realms are less solid and more permeable. Whenever you have a period of chaos, that's the period where the most change is possible to occur. And you can see that today in our society. There's so much chaos going on. Very good time. A lot of people are actually happy to see all the chaos because it indicates that people are being shaken up from their way of they've always done things, and they're re-examining how things are being done, and hopefully progress succeeds over retro. But the same occurs any place where there's a softening of barriers between areas, and that's dawn and twilight for us. We're also at the change of ages. We bottomed out at the end of the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness, and we're moving back up in consciousness, which will peak in only 13,000 years at the top of the golden age of spirituality. After that, it starts to cycle back down again to the Kali Yuga. So it's a 26,000 year cycle. This means we're beginning to understand subtleties of consciousness that were unavailable to most in recent times. The veils between the dimensions are thinning out, and we are able to see more subtle life forms, thoughts, and feelings. This means that used to be, when you guys were all kids, you go out and you could play outside, you'd just be playing in nature. And the world between the nature spirits and the humans was very solid. But as we're moving up in consciousness, those walls that exist at the lower levels of gross physical consciousness, as you move up in consciousness, you're moving to a place where these worlds come together and join before they separated out. And the veils then that define the concrete divisions are less firm. And we're beginning to see into these realms to the point at which we can't deny that they're there. And it's like, okay, we can see that they're there. Now, what do we do about it? And that's one of the issues that's going to become more and more intense. So to start successful communication, here are some tips. You need to do this work for good, peaceful reasons. Nature spirits can read our inner thoughts and feelings. Should you have ill intent, they won't connect with you. It helps to undertake a needed project together. Humans are the arms and legs and muscles for quick physical action. Nature spirits in general work on subtle planes. Therefore, if there's something like physical debris or branches that have fallen across plants, they need our help to remove them and place them elsewhere. So their code of ethics is very strong. When someone helps them, they are required to thank and offer payment. When this happens, ask only that they teach you about themselves. That will please them and help establish a connection. So those of you, again, who read my Nature Spirits book know the story, might recall the story of the fern fairies and the moss fairies, and my work to remove some trees that had fallen across their sweet spot, their capital. And you can see something it was an area much like this, in the same area. And once I removed these, the spirits thanked me so much and asked what I wanted. And then that's when my own team of guides came in and spoke to me, because frankly, I was shocked. I just removed these, and then they said, thank you, whatever you want, whatever you need, what can we do to pay you? And my team said, well, this is where the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow came with the leprechauns in Ireland. If you do a favor for them, they have to have to pay you, and a low consciousness people just want gold. And they said, you ask them to please explain more. You would be so grateful if they would explain more about themselves. So when I asked for that, there was stunned shock on their side. They were just stunned in silence. And then there was this sense of delight and pleasure. And I sat there for about, half an hour or so, and they just communed with me about their world and taught me a lot about how they work. So a very good way to get in touch with the nature spirits. Now, when you go out with the intent to communicate and photograph nature spirits, please be polite. The first thing is to stop at the entrance to the area and greet the overlighting deva. Be sincere. Even if you don't feel the conscious connection, know that they are very vigilant in protecting their territory and they will hear you. Let the deva know your intent, that you wish to work with nature for the betterment of both realms, that you would be appreciative if any nature spirit wishing their photo taken would make themselves known to you. Then after focusing and centering, start walking and listening or feeling for anything asking you to wander off course. So when you start, you may not be aware that something here is your effort to connect, but the devas are extremely subtle. They are overseeing everything that goes through their domain. And if they see any of these humans who is aspiring to connect on that level as versus enjoying the beauty which they prepare for us, they are extremely happy to do so. But they will look in your heart. They can see inside your spirit. And if you're fooling them or, have ill intent, you won't hear anything from them. And this is an area where, remember that guardian of place he lives over in this area. And I love this. Here are some of the beings in his realm. Here's a lovely big stone figure. And here's a kind of a animal being here. Got lots of good photos in that area. Now, when you get to where you are being called, you may not in the beginning of this work see anything. You need to focus and shift your consciousness to the frequency or the tree or rock, and suddenly the image will appear. You may also need to just photograph where they tell you. Take as good and clear a photograph as you can. When you return home, download the photograph into a photo program and enlarge it to the point where you can see detail and visually soft focus on the image to see what it is. I want to show you this, give you some sense of what's happening. This was my very first photo of a nature spirit, and I got a moss fairy right here. Now, I was not a photographer, because my mother was a travel writer and she was the photographer of the family. I did other things. But one summer up at our summer place in New Hampshire, a gnome that I share my cottage with announced to me that he wanted to take me out to take a photo of a nature spirit. And I had never really paid any attention to nature spirits before that. I frankly had never really paid attention to the gnome, and he decided to make himself known and that he was a real being. So on a psychic plane, I could see him, and I took my little point and shoot camera and we went out into the family woods. He took me into a place we have 100 acres where there was, I'd never been before, and there was this wonderful little moss fairy village. So he said, all right, this is a moss fairy home, take photos. And I went, I don't see anything. And he said, just take photos, just take a lot of photos. So I just clicked a whole bunch of photos. And then I brought them back and I downloaded them on the computer. And then I looked, and quite frankly, I couldn't see anything anywhere. And the gnome was like, oh my God. He said, just go to the place we tell you. So I went through them and he said, that one. And then I said, I still don't see anything. And he said, all right, just go in closer, closer, closer. Well, this being my first one and I wasn't a photographer, I didn't get a really clear shot, but I did get this little, you see his little face right here looking out underneath, and you see his pink shirt and his white pants. And this is his home down here. So, and they're very, very shy beings, these moss fairies, extremely shy. So I felt really hot shot that I had found an image of a moss fairy. So I trooped out the next day and I went back to the site and parked myself outside this place and started taking photos. Now, what I expected to happen, like this shy little moss fairy was going to hang out and come see me, I don't know. But while I was taking these photos, I heard this voice saying to me, you humans are so stupid. And I just ignored it and kept on taking photos. And it was like, you humans are so stupid. And finally I stopped and I looked around, and there was, on the psychic level, there was a Pan leaning against the tree with his pipes. And he was just shaking his head and saying, you know, the stupidness of what you're doing is unbelievable. And later I understood that, of course, this poor little fairy that's shy is not going to come out and stand for a photo of me, for me to take. But I guess they figured I had possibility because they didn't stop talking to me, and the gnome took me out on other adventures. Now, after you start being able to see the image, you want to get a good array of photographs. Once a tree, as I mentioned before, starts developing images and energies, it will usually reach out to make more images. And sometimes the images overlap. So as I said, walk all around the tree or rock and look up and down and be willing to adjust your frequency. Take close-ups and distance and nice sharp photos with good light. We have a Facebook group, a closed Facebook group that you can join, and we get a lot of postings from the public. And when folks first start out, they get the image, but it's often blurry. And what you want to do is just practice your photographic skills so they get better. Now, this is one of my favorite trees. It's in Central Park. It's at Strawberry Fields, which is the John Lennon site. And I love it. I love this image of, it reminds me of John Lennon, but playing a flute. And here's a little rabbit. And here's a little preppy guy over here whistling. And there's some other beings here. And here is the full tree. So I took a photo of the full tree. So you see there's also a bigger image. And there is another nose and a face here. So all around this tree, there are images that were there long before, you know, John Lennon was there and the Beatles, but probably the energy that why he liked it so much. He lived nearby off of 71st Street in upper on the Central Park West. So here are some other photos that I took. So exploring it, I wanted to make sure I got them, and I went back. My son lives near there, and when I go visit him, I would spend days just photographing Central Park and its beautiful trees. So here's somebody enjoying the resting under the tree in summer. You see the eye and the mouth. Here's another view of the tree from another angle. Here's a close-up of the musician and the rabbit. And here's a close-up of that little preppy guy with whistling and his little beanie cap, enjoying the music. And then one of the things I've started doing now is using textures. to isolate the image from the busy backgrounds. Nature usually provides a busy background, and it takes a lot of work to use a proper camera aperture to get the right, blur the distance and still get all the details. And I like to use the textures to suggest what it looks like when I'm identifying with a life form. Because when I go in and I identify with that life form, it's like the light changes. I enter into another world where I'm seeing the nature being and not really aware of what's around it. This was one of my efforts to show here's, going into another realm and the beings and it just fading away. All right. Now, when you're photographing trees and when you're photographing rocks, it requires two different kinds of light. Now, because if you work with Lightroom and Photoshop, Lightroom has gotten so sophisticated that there are lots of ways that if you're taking it, if you have no alternative and you take it in the sun, you can lower the shadows and decrease the light so that you get in this neutral territory. But the best of all is to shoot on an overcast day, because that lets you see all of the subtleties of the tree, and it doesn't attract to the lights in the background. So here, this is a very famous tree in Magnolia Cemetery in South Carolina, and it's been photographed for hundreds of years. It's 900 years old. And here it is, the mother bowing down when people come to mourn their loved ones. You can see the face here and the bowing down, and on the back there's a bird representing the soul, and another image here. So because it's on an overcast day, the cemetery behind doesn't show that much, and you can get all of the nuances in it. And that's versus rocks, especially in the high desert or the high mountains, where the shadows emphasize the crevices of the rock's personalities. And you may need to revisit the site at various times of the day and look at how the changing light affects the image. So here, this is up at the mountains like Chiricahua National Monument in Arizona. And that's an area with a whole abundance of hoodoos. And hoodoos are rocks that have images of people and animals. And pioneers would call them hoodoos because they reminded of the voodoo of New Orleans. But neither pioneers nor the Native Americans wanted to be in those areas at night because they felt that rocks came alive and with spirits and would come out and walk around. So this here is the Lady of Chiricahua. She's overlooking a whole valley of hoodoos, and she has very refined features. Over here, I particularly like this because it shows the difficulty of leadership. And you see the king and the queen, I call them the king and the queen. And they're trying to organize their world. While up above, you have two little courtiers gossiping away and causing the king and the queen a lot of trouble. All right. So here we are, and we are now at the end of the second session. And we are ready for any more questions. Any questions, Laura?
I don't see any right now. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask about this section?
Okay, no questions about how to communicate or anything?
Bridget has said something, but I'm not sure what it is.
Can
Bridget?
trees heal?
Oh, yes, yes. Trees uh, uh, feel physically and deeply. I mean, they have all the senses just like we do, and which is why in the more enlightened cultures, the Druids and the Native Americans, before they cut a tree, they'll ask, explain that it has to be cut for whatever reason. And when I do any work on my plants, or I've been told by the nature spirits that if you see that there's going to be construction in your area, go out before it occurs and let the trees and the nature spirits know, so that any beings that can be moved, they can move, and any beings that go with the tree, they can prepare for it. There's many ramifications. It's very good on your own personal property. You can make friends with the trees and interrelate with them over time.
Can trees heal people too?
What?
Can trees heal people?
Trees can heal people. Yeah, I mean, that's why we have all of the herbalists who are using, tree parts and aspirin and things like that. But what I often do, and I've traveled most of the places around the world, and in a lot of places I wasn't too careful what I ate. I might not feel good from eating local food. And what I would do is go and find a local tree, and I would lean against it or put my hands up against it and talk to the tree and ask for it, please, could you just flow your energy down through me and clear me? And it's very good. If you need more energy, you can either lean against a tree or sit at a tree at twilight and communicate with the tree and ask the tree to flow its sap, its healing energy down through you. And then, just as an aside, once I was in Kyoto and I was really sick, so from what I ate. So I went into the palace. I was visiting there, the palace grounds, and there was this stand of beautiful pine trees. So I went in there and I put my hand against the tree to ask for help. And it was the only time I've met arrogant trees. And the tree spirit said, "Who are you and what do you want?" So I explained the situation, and I said, please, could you just help me? I just don't feel well. Like, could you, just run your healing energy through me? And there was this long pause, and then it was, "Well, all right, but just this once, and don't come back." So they ran it through me. I felt so much better, and I went about my day. And then the next day I went, it's really rude. I've always been taught I have to say thank you to the trees. It's their code. So I went back, and the minute I walked into that little enclave of pine trees, they said to me, "We told you not to come back." So I went like, "All right, okay, I'm out of here. I just want to say thank you," and that's it. So yeah, they can help a lot. Okay.
We have a question from Denise, and then I think Sylvie has a question. Denise asks, is it different connecting with rocks and trees?
Different connecting with rocks and trees. Well, it's kind of like it was a different connecting with a football player or a dancer, It's a different energy. And they each have their own personality. Rocks are used more for holding in place. So if I want to identify with energy and anchor it, I love rocks, which is why I have a rock shop. I never met a rock I didn't like. They all, are very good. Trees are more supple and in energy, but depending upon what you need, is what you get. Yes, they're just different.
Okay, Sylvie, did you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, thank you for your stories. I really appreciate the story of the arrogant tree, and then hearing you say, "I never met a rock I never met a rock I didn't like." So I had a situation this week. I was camping and went along a rock wall, and I always greet the spirits, and I was there in a very sweet and humble way because I was learning to play the flute. So, with all these Zoom sessions now, I'm learning to play the Native American flute. So I'm walking through the stream and looking at these beautiful flowers and rocks, and I climbed up on the rock and I slipped. It wasn't just, even though it was wet, it wasn't just like slipping from wet. It was like I was pushed out. And I have this huge bruise on my bum, and it's been several days. I'm still shocked about it. Like, what did I do wrong? I thought I entered this space in a humble way. And then when you mentioned the hoodoos, I thought, well, maybe I didn't enter the way I should have. Do you have any insights for me?
All right, so the sound is not all that clear, so let me get it clear. You went to a place with a stream and there was a stone that you slipped on?
Yeah, it was a rock wall. It was a whole rim, like a probably half-mile rim of boulders, much like what we're looking at here, but with these tall rock wall. If I come closer, do you hear me better?
Yeah.
Oh.
First of all, you paired that with playing a Native American flute. And what do you use the thumb for when you're playing the American flute?
To hold it.
To hold it.
Hold the flute.
Is it for one of the openings, or you use it? How are you holding it?
The two thumbs are holding the flute.
So, and is it a thumb on your left or your right hand?
Both thumbs are holding the flute.
No, which is the thumb that you hurt?
No, my bum. Sorry.
Oh, your bum.
No, I fell. I mean, I was thrown. It felt like I was thrown for several feet. My flute went flying. My brand new flute scratched up. It was like I was pushed.
You would have to sit with that. I'm not
And
getting.
maybe it was just slippery. I mean, it was wet, but I was.
Right.
Maybe a wet rock is just a wet rock,
Well, there's so many things, and you have to sit and think. Was there a leprechaun around that was, joshing you, or were you connecting? Were you playing the flute before this happened, or were you just carrying the flute?
I was taking pictures of my flute on the rock.
On the rock. There's something. This is just what I'm picking up. There's something about the flute, and you're needing to honor it more and respect it more in a different way. And it was trying to call your attention to it, but I don't know, I mean, you're just learning it. It might be that you need to reach deeper incarnationally into your life and the beauty. I mean, the Indian flute is the most beautiful thing. The sound is so spectacular. I'd explore what the connection is between the flute and the slipping, and how you're approaching it, and if you actually are more experienced maybe than you feel you are with it. That's all I'm getting. Sorry. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it for the questions.
All right. Okay, we are on to the next section. So here we are. We're going to take a virtual visit with a green man. And I'm going to take you through there, and then I'm going to have you sit with the green man and see what you come up with. And then we're going to discuss that. So this is a participation segment of the workshop. If this is taking the place of our walkabout, and if I am, the wonderful thing about the Zoom meeting is that you folks are from around the country, and we can communicate even though we're far distance. If I'm ever in your area or whatever, I'd love to meet you and, you know, love to walk with you, but this is the next best thing, especially because we're all visual. So I've chosen to take you on a walk with the Greenmen because they're the philosophers, the teachers, the arbiters, and the warriors of the nature realms. And they're particular friends of mine who I've worked with over many incarnations. They've taught me a lot about the nature realms. They're always with me. They're always very kind, loving, protective. It's like they're my family, and right now I don't remember as much as I would have known incarnations ago when, you know, would have been practicing in the Celtic areas. And they're very good if you want to learn and you're sincere. They will help you. If you are not sincere, or if they need to, they can be fierce warriors and they protect people. And so we're going to take a virtual walk to visit them. So there's a special look to the green people. They have very well-defined humanoid features. What's distinctive about them is the facial armor that folds back from the face. And this facial armor is brought forth for drama, for courtship, and for war. So on the left, this is from a local park in Chicago area. Here's a green man, so well defined, looking up over his territory by a river. And you see his mouth, his chin, and his facial armor that's resting back. This is their resting state. And you can see it's biological, it comes from inside them. That's what their being, this species is like. You know, they have the armor as part of their being. And if you look at the Celtic Greenmen drawings and plaques, they recognize this about the green men, and you always see them with leaves coming out, whatever the tree species is that they are, that's growing out of them. That's their modus. So here's a tree being from up in New Hampshire, a tree that was beginning to die. And you can see the facial, this is a green man in warrior status, and he's brought his leaves around them. They're forward, and it comes up around his mouth as armor. So they can bring it forward to protect themselves and lock it in when they go into battle. And on the right, this is an elderly green man, and you can see the facial armor is flaccid now, you know, retired warrior. And he's in the philosopher stage. So this is one of my favorite green men out here. He's in a local park, and we have many good conversations. I was taking a class at Elgin, and one of my classmates was a young man who had been in the military, in the Marines, and his visage reminded me very much of the green man. So I asked if he he'd mind if I photographed him from the side and used him as to show the military aspect of the Green Man as it is with humans. So, you know, that kind of hawk-like nose and determined mouth. And here he is just by himself. Now, here is the Green Man in his setting. So this is the local park that he lives in, and this is his tree. He is a little bit above eye level here and is facing out over this territory. And you can see his form going down, but his head is in this area. And here the Green Man is, I've given him a texture so that it's kind of like how I see him when I go in to speak with him, that it's a gold green world where you just see him and you see his energy, and everything else for me just kind of fades away. It's a physical, and there's just the subtle. So now this is going to be where we're going to pause, and I am going to let you sit for a couple of minutes. And I want you to identify with the Green Man, and then we'll discuss any experiences that you have from it. And just any way that you identify, look at him, ask him questions, go into his world. Now I'm going to stop talking and let you identify. Okay. Now we're going to come out and let's discuss what people felt from this. Any comments for anyone? What was your interaction with that? Sylvie, you're unmuted. How about you?
Sorry, I'm not used to the Zoom. Yeah, it was very interesting. I grew up in England, and people often think that I have experiences with the Green Man, but I never have. I see them in churches and cathedrals, and I never have. And with this experience, I was taken to my forest where I grew up in England, and the Green Man said, "I've seen you many more times than you've seen me," and recognized me. So I felt the Green Man looking at me, like, you know, usually we go out in nature and I'm looking at nature, but I just allow the green man to look at me and see me. So then we were called back.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, Sylvie. Okay. And you can mute yourself.
Thank you.
Okay, who would like to share? I'd like each person to share. If you felt anything.
I'll just say that I kind of felt like I was being told that this is my choice. I can believe, I can become invested, or I cannot. But either way, they're still there. So it's my choice whether I want to get involved in the world, or if I don't want to right now, I don't have to, and later on they'll still accept me when I'm ready.
Thank you. Beautiful.
And Carol wrote, is the green man always presenting as green? Why is he called the Green Man?
No, he's not always. I mean, I have a lot of image of him in, in black walnut trees or other trees where he's not green. This one happens to be green. But the energy is of the leaves when, the green, they're usually symbols of fertility, the fertile aspect of nature. So they have the green leaves, and people generally see their energy as green, which is growth in the heart. So it's the green energy about them. Okay. Okay, Scott, how about you?
Well, for me, he just wanted to reassure me that he is going to support me because this part of my life is really devoted to nature. It's been very emotional.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Bridget?
I didn't get a whole lot, but he's very proud of the part he's played in your education, being able to educate people.
Good. Thank you, Bridget.
You're welcome.
Juna? You're still muted.
Yeah, there we go. I just got a lot of impressions. The first thing I got was this really vast, big space, like an open space. I felt like this deep wisdom, like a watchfulness, something about watching for territorial disputes or something. I felt like there are many, many creatures that live there, and part of what he works with is for harmony and fairness. I got community, communication, and networking.
Right on. I'm so proud of my green men. They are really. Thank you. How about Laurel?
I got sort of almost a channeled message that I wrote down. Do you want me to read it?
Love to hear it.
What I got was, we are one life, There isn't any difference, only superficial ones of form. We are glad you have chosen to become educated, dear one. There is much you can do to further this vital understanding that will heal the wounds that have been inflicted by humans, and also heal humans at the same time. Earlier human cultures knew about us, but the one you are currently with does not.
Thank you, Laurel. That is beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Or is there anybody who has their visual off that wants to speak? Because I only see the visuals here. Karen.
Hi. Oh, I'm not, my
Did I stop my video? No, I thought I started it. Okay. What I really felt was a presence, and I saw almost a presence in a headdress. It wasn't Native American. It was an older culture, and almost like a spiritual warrior, a shaman of the village that was there to keep the village connected. Was the overseer, was the one that handles all the difficulties and problems in that village. So that's what kept coming forward for me.
That's what the Greenman does.
Okay. Okay.
Very
good.
well. Thank
It
you.
kept on coming up Mayan. I don't know if that is correct or if that's just because I heard Mayan earlier in the, but that just kept coming to me, Mayan. So I'm not certain about that.
Well, there probably are a Mayan Greenmen, and also I have an affinity for the Mayan culture, so that may have been strong. And you may have
Okay.
it too. You may have it too,
Okay.
Karen.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishes to speak that is muted?
I connected with the little green man that I found in my neighborhood when I was reading your book. And he is a couple blocks from me, just on a street that's by our bike trail. And he came in and he was very young and sprite, like a teenager. And he was very proud and said that he watches, from his tree, he can see all the way down the street. And he kind of keeps protection on the whole street. And I said, why are you so low down? Because he's like around my knees or thighs, not higher up. And he said something about that way I can connect with everybody's dog. Because it's a dog walking block. And he just said, watch how far I can see. And I could almost see like down several blocks, like through him. So he was a young buck.
That's lovely. Thank you, Denise.
Sure.
Anybody else wishes to speak? All right, so first I'm have to say I'm very proud of my green man for making himself and the green men available to communicate with each of you. I'm very proud of all of you for your ability to connect to the energy of the green man. And what I want to do now is having the group experience of what we all have experienced here. I'm going to take you back in for another 2 minutes to communicate with the green man, at which point you can ask if there's any way you can connect in your area, or could the green man please make his energy available, as a community for you to reach out in your area and to start learning how to communicate and to do the actions of communicating where you are. So I'm going to do 2 minutes where each of you can go back in and communicate. Okay, so I'm going to let each of you keep it inside yourself, how you had this last experience with the Green Man. And just for your information, whatever you've gleaned in this, keep to yourself. You know, maybe don't share it with your family or friends for a few days, so that you internalize the power of the experience and make it part of your energy. And once you've done that after, say, 2 days, and then you can share it with people, but internalize it for right now. It keeps the power strong inside you. So we are going to go to the fourth and final section, and that's the sources of information that are available for you now that you've had a sense of this. And there are a growing number of places where you can get information about ways to connect to the spirit of nature. Many of these sources approach this very large subject in some unique manner. So the classic modern sources are Findhorn in Scotland and Perelandra, founded by Michelle Small-Wright in Virginia. And these are two areas that work specifically with nature spirits to help the strength of the plants on their areas, and to get philosophical and inner help on either mental, spiritual, and even physical issues. So I suggest that you check these out. Other traditions that have over the years worked with this and you might check out are the Druids of Europe, who focused on connecting to the spirit of nature. The Shinto culture of Japan, which honors nature spirits. And Russia has a strong history of recognizing and connecting with nature. So these are different areas you might want to explore. The options that I've offered and developed over the 12, 15 years I've been doing this work are these following ways. I have 3 books. We Are Not Alone, a guidebook for interdimensional cooperation. And that takes the, what we're doing here when you're talking with nature spirits is interdimensional cooperation focused on nature spirits. But you also can focus on a galactic level, or you can focus on a personal health level. So I cover those topics in that book. Then Nature Spirits, Spirit Guides and Ghosts, How to Talk with and Photograph Beings of Other Realms. That's where I focus specifically on communicating with nature spirits and ways to photograph. And then Nature Spirits in American Trees are my photos of trees that are available. A number of you mentioned that you've watched my videos. We have a Crystal Life YouTube channel, and it's also available through the Crystal Life library, crystallife.com. And a lot of these are dealing with different aspects of connecting to spirit, and different aspects of nature, of sacred geometry. I am going to be giving a talk for Infinity Foundation in November on sacred geometry, how you can use that. There are articles and blogs that you can explore, and I am doing 1 blog a day at attalatoy.com for this following year, and that is a description of various of the photos I've taken and the lessons inside them, or a bit about how nature spirits are operating through that particular situation. And there's also the library, crystallife.com. My photographs that the nature spirits have provided me, I've made into wall hangings and cards and just visuals. And you can go into attalatoy.com gallery and the crystallife.com cards and prints. And whether you want to get a print for your wall or you want to just focus on the photographs, as you saw when you were focusing on the Green Man, You can look at the photograph, connect into that world, whether it's a leprechaun, a gnome, a dwarf, troll, a green man, and resonate with that frequency so that it's easier when you go out in nature when you come near that frequency, you'll recognize the frequency and it'll be easier for you to see. And I also have a lot of fun with home products and jewelry at atalatoy.com and throughout the crystallife.com. So jewelry and mugs and different products, and also on my Etsy page. If you yourself take photos, we would love to have you share. The more of us that share, the stronger the energy and the prevailing consciousness is in society that nature spirits are real and that we could be working with them for the benefit of everyone. So we have on Facebook a page that you can see different items that I've done, but a closed group where you can post your own nature spirit photos and discuss them with others. And you can also see photos taken from people around the world who are sharing and explaining what maybe the comments that they've heard from the nature spirits, or just images. You can also, if you're on Pinterest, I share my photos there, and I also show them on Instagram. And you can also connect with me if you want to email me any questions at atala.toy.artist@gmail.com. And here we are, a beautiful day in the dawn, just right for you to go out and explore with the nature. And now I'll open this up for everyone to talk, and we'll do our final share. So if each of you would like to say something or have questions, now is the time. So I'd love to hear from you.
When I have a dog I walk, and it's a particular neighborhood, and I think I've become friends with the trees because they're always showing me stuff. But I've noticed that the whole form of the tree speaks to me. Is there a communal, like does the whole tree have a meaning too?
Yes, there are, as we, in that first part, inside one tree, you can have multiple experiences. So you always have the spirit of the tree itself, and that spirit stays with that tree. It lives and dies with the tree. But also occupying that tree could be any of the other items, nodal, greenmen, dwarves, gnomes, whoever is calling that their home. So it depends upon what area you're connecting to. You can also connect in, like these are oak trees. You can connect into one oak tree, and you connect into the grid of all of the oak trees in that area or that neighborhood, because they are all interconnected. So you can enter into the oak consciousness, and sometimes when you just had enough of humans, you want a little gentler, you can go out in the forest, sit with the oaks, and enter into oak world where everything's peaceful, on a peaceful day. So all those many, many options open to you.
I went to San Francisco. We went to the John Muir Woods, and I was running a half marathon, and I was in a lot of pain. And the day before the race, I was running around the woods. I had so much energy. The trees and I wasn't in pain. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's a different, you were in different energies on those 2 days, weren't you?
Oh yes.
Yeah, I think that's a very good experience for you to see, what happens if you go out in the woods when you're going out for a walk, or when you're going for a run, or when you're going out to communicate with trees, you're going to get a different reaction. Just like with humans, you know, if you're in a group of people at a party and you talk to a football player, you're going to talk differently than if you talk to the artist or the ballet performer. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bridget. All right, who else would like to speak? Oh, I'm going to have to call on people. How about Laurel?
I wondered who the ant people were that you mentioned in the first section. There was a mural in rock that was, you know, commemorative, and I
Right.
never heard of the ant people before. I just wondered what that was.
Well, among the Native American cultures and in many places around the world, they talk about at the different changes of ages, the Ice Age or the Flood, how these beings took people into the inner world to protect them when the floods or the cold was going on. And it's part of the Navajo and the Adena and the different traditions of the Southwest, that at the when the Ice Age came in many Earth ages ago, that the ant people, they specified the ant people took some humans and animals into the inner world to protect them during this period. And that was an image of what the ant people looked like. And throughout the Southwest, people come across these caves that are in Earth that have been occupied someplace way long ago. So it gives credence to that. That's what they are.
Oh, thank you.
Well, this is Carol. I also had a question about that. Did it mean that they took humans into a different realm, or just directed them to places like a cave where they could avoid the flood?
Well, my understanding from ancient American sources is that they have found a lot of deep inner earth caves and places that were occupied many eons ago by people who lived under earth at this time. Now, it's quite possible, like with the Mayan cultures or other cultures, that they were taken into other dimensions or taken off planet. So there are probably, over the earth, there's so many intergalactic and interdimensional cultures helping us that all of these are true. You know, but this is the story of one group that protected. Then that's as much as I have figured out so far. Okay. Thank you, Carol.
Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else?
I saw online that we can come in and shop in your store. Are you there ever, or like, can we talk to you there at the store, or are you?
Well, I used to be there all the time, and then over my 25 years there, I managed now to have a wonderful staff of energy workers, and you can go in and ask questions of the energy workers, wonderful staff there. I myself am usually not there. If you're coming from a long distance, and you know, you can let the staff know, and if I'm around, I can drop in. But usually I'm trying to create an atmosphere where the work stands by itself, you know, that it's self-explanatory, and that I've trained people who can explain to you. So,
All right, thank you. I miss seeing you in person.
Juna, did you have a question?
Oh, I'd like to thank you. That was very inspiring and uplifting, and thank you.
Well, thank you very much. All right, any other questions before we call it a day? Scott?
Yeah, First off, gratitude and thanks. This has been beautiful. I guess my biggest concern is a respectful entry into the nature realm. A lot of times I'll kneel, pray, give thanks, and then present tobacco. Is that a pretty good method to use?
Sure. Well, that's the one the Native American shamans would use. They always use the American tobacco, the unadulterated tobacco, and do it as an offering. It depends upon your tradition. What really matters is your inner spirit, how you're approaching. So if you're using ritual to connect and demonstrate your sincerity and your ahimsa, your non-harm, that matters. If you're of the orientation that you just want to go and stand and connect to spirit and offer your love and your service, that also works. So, the nature, all are acceptable to the nature spirit if the spirit's right.
So it's the intent, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is at the end of my journeys, I also like to say a gift or to say thank you for allowing me to come into their area. Is there anything you recommend there?
Two things. First, just always say thank you.
Okay.
Always say thank you to us, so you can say thank you. And the next thing is action. What are you going to do with this? So I believe firmly that you have to walk your talk. So if you go out and you say, I want to take photos because I want to share with other people and show that you're real, that you need to then go out and share. And do the best that you can, whatever audience it is, small or large, even if it's just yourself to print it. But that's one of the reasons why we have the Nature Spirits group on Facebook. So this is a way where you can start out and you can share with others and get feedback from others. So I highly recommend that.
Is there a camera that you recommend? Any type of camera?
Nowadays a new cell phone that's as good a photo as any of the digital cameras, just as long as it's a good camera that you can get up close. I personally I have a Nikon D850, and that and with a good lens that lets me telescoping lens, so I can take the tree at a distance and I can take the tree up close, with the image in it. So you want to get both. You want to get the distance to show it in its environment, and then you want to get it up close to get the image that you're looking at. So.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, guys. Well, we've reached the end of our journey, and I thank you so much for being part with me. And if you will send me your emails at attila.toy.com, attila.toy.artist@gmail, we'll send you the video of this. Okay? All right. Thanks. You take care.